Story time about how I found my boyfriend with his best friend. My boyfriend and I have been together for almost 6 years. We met in cosmetology school. We both had a love for makeup and hair. While in school, we decided to partner up and open up our own little business. I started liking him from the moment we met, but he never made a move on me. And I was not used to that. So we were friends for a few months. One night we went out with our friends and we got a little drunk and one thing led to another and I kissed him. He kissed me back and after that we were inseparable. We even moved in together and we talked about marriage. But ultimately he would never propose. I always asked him when we were going to get married and he just never had an answer. His best friend, let's call him Roger. Roger was a great guy and he always hung out with us. I liked him. They would hang out all the time and I never thought anything of it because they were best friends. One day Roger made a comment about my boyfriend being really good looking. I brushed it off, but a few days later I walk into our apartment and there they are on the couch doing stuff. Literally passed out. Part 2 is up. I walk in on my boyfriend and his male best friend on the couch doing things to each other. I actually fainted as soon as I saw it. All the blood rushed to my head and I passed out. And when I came to, they're both standing over me half naked. My boyfriend picked me up from the floor and put me on the couch. And Roger went to the kitchen to get me a drink. I felt dizzy and I couldn't even speak. I blurted out, "You're gay?" Then my boyfriend started crying. He said he didn't mean to hurt me and that he never wanted to waste my time. I asked him how long he'd known that he was gay, and he said for a few years. That meant I was wasting all of my youth on him. I could have had children. I could have been married already. I was so upset. Then guess what? My boyfriend says he's gonna go stay at Roger's place so that he can give me some space. Of course I begged him not to leave because I knew that would be the end of us. I thought we could work through this. He packed his stuff and left. Part 3 is up. My boyfriend left me for his best friend, who's a guy. A few days passed by and I was super devastated. That's when my boyfriend comes and knocks on my door. Then he gave me the worst news of all. He told me he was gonna marry his best friend Roger. He explained to me that they had been in love for a long time, but they never told each other anything. It was only until recently that they started hooking up. Looking back, it all makes sense. He and Roger would hang out all the time and I was never invited. Roger even got my boyfriend hired as a makeup artist at his job. They were constantly together. But at the same time, I had never seen my boyfriend so happy. He said he could finally be himself. This is when I realized that it was for the best. I stopped begging him to get back with me and I started dating other people. They even invited me to their wedding, which was beautiful. Now we have dinner a few times a month and I've got a new boyfriend. Life is crazy. Story time about how I caught my husband with his mistress. My husband and I, or should I say my has-been of a husband, have been married for 9 years. Disclaimer, this is not my story time, it was sent to me. My husband and I also have 2 kids. When we met, I was totally out of his league and he knew it. We met through friends and he made sure to tell all of my friends how much he wanted to be with me. At the time, I was modeling to pay my way through school, so I had no time for a boyfriend. But he got pretty insistent. We went out on a few dates and he treated me really well, better than all the guys I had met at that time. He was a gentleman, always picked up the tab and treated me with respect. So when he asked me to be his girlfriend, I said yes. 2 years later, he asked me to be his wife and I said yes. We were truly in love and best of all, we were best friends. I could talk to him about anything because he wasn't the jealous type. 4 months ago, he asked me for an open relationship. Of course I said no and this made him really angry. I got really suspicious and started checking his phone when he'd fall asleep. And that's when I found pictures of him with a girl at a hotel doing naughty things to each other. Part 2 is up. Once he fell asleep, I checked his phone and that's when I found pictures of him with another girl at a hotel doing naughty things to each other. Disclaimer, this is not my story time, it was sent to me on Instagram. I decided not to confront him. Instead, I started gathering evidence. I started following him around everywhere after I dropped the kids off at school. Mind you, I quit my job because he wanted me to stay at home with the kids. On the first day I started following him, he went to a hotel. Since I didn't want him to see me, I stayed in my car. 40 minutes, he exits the hotel with a woman. By the way, these were not cheap hotels. A few days later, I followed him to a strip club. I checked his bank account and he had withdrawn $2,000 that same day. That's when I really got upset. A few days later, I followed him to an apartment complex. That's when I see a woman opening the door and it was the same woman from the hotel. My stomach dropped. After about a week, I mustered up the courage to go talk to her. When she opened the door, she recognized me instantly. She tried to close the door in my face, but I pushed my way in. Then the coward ran to her room and locked herself in there. My husband's mistress runs to her room and locks the door when she sees me. What a coward. I ran right after her and I told her that I wasn't going to hurt her and that I just wanted to talk. Of course, she asked me to leave, but I told her I wasn't going to move an inch until we talked. She comes out and we proceed to talk for 3 hours. She explained to me that she's an escort and that my husband pays for her apartment. She also told me that she wasn't in love with him and that she really only needed the money. This made me very happy. She also told me that aside from paying for her apartment, he gave her an allowance of $3,000 a month. Oh yeah, and that she knew about me and the kids. That's when I lost it. I took my pepper spray out of my purse and sprayed her. Fortunately, it didn't directly hit her in the face, but it still got her. I went straight to a lawyer and presented all the evidence. When I got home, my husband asked me how I found out. I showed him all the evidence and he was stunned. He's begging me not to divorce him because he knows it's going to be really expensive. I kicked him out and he went to his mom's house. His mom was angry and she didn't let him stay there. How much should I ask for? Story time about how I got arrested for stalking my celebrity crush. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It was sent to me on Instagram. When I was 15, I saw my celebrity crush for the first time in a movie. After that, I pretty much went to all of his movie premieres and events. I was able to take a picture with him and even got his signature. To say that I was obsessed was an understatement. Now, here's where the problem began. He started dating this woman, aka another celebrity, and I pretty much lost it after that. At the time, I was living with my mother and she couldn't help but notice the change in me. I started staying out pretty late, mostly because I was out in the city looking for him. I knew all of his hangout spots because the paparazzi always caught him there. So I basically would hang out everywhere he would. I followed him to his house, I followed him to the gym, and I followed him to the grocery store, pretty much everywhere. I decided to sign up to his gym, and I started talking to him, and he started talking to me, and he asked me out on a date. Part 2 is up. After stalking him for a while, my celebrity crush asked me out on a date, but he didn't know I was stalking him, of course. Disclaimer, this is not my story time, it was sent to me on Instagram. On the date, he pretty much only talked about himself. He told me he had just broken up with his ex, which I knew that. And I basically pretended not to know anything about him. There was lots of awkward silence and I just couldn't help but stare at him the whole time. That's when he asked for the check and paid for dinner. I was totally expecting him to ask me to go back to his place. Well, when he didn't, I was really disappointed. So I did the logical thing. I invited myself over. That's when he told me that he couldn't because he had to get up early. After that, I didn't hear back from him at all. So I decided to go to the gym where I knew he was going to be. But when I tried to say hello to him, he told me to stay away. Then he asked one of the gym employees to escort me out. And when I got home, the cops were waiting for me to arrest me. They showed me pictures of me stalking my celebrity crush. Part 3 is up. As soon as I got home, the cops were there and they arrested me. And they showed me pictures of me stalking my celebrity crush. Disclaimer, this is not my story time, it was sent to me on Instagram. Since they had all this evidence and my face on the pictures, I couldn't say it wasn't me. They told me that after our date, my celebrity crush got a really bad feeling from me. So he decided to install cameras around his house and in his car. And well, that's when he caught me stalking him around his house at odd hours and following him in my car all the time. I was taken to court and told I had to go to therapy. Apparently, he felt bad for me though and didn't want to press charges. He did get a restraining order, so I definitely can't go near him. The good news is that I have another celebrity crush. Yay! Story time about how I caught my girlfriend cheating on me with my cousin. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. Girlfriend and I have been together for 5 months, and yes, we are both girls. My cousin, who is a guy, works as a club promoter. He's constantly surrounded by girls, so one night he invited me over to his club. When I got to the club that night, he introduced me to this girl. Let's call her Stacy. Stacy and I hit it off right away. She's an Instagram model and owns her own business. I was totally attracted to her right away. We talked and danced the entire night, and after that, we were inseparable. We did everything together, and she started sleeping at my place, and I would sleep at hers. And we started partying with my cousin every single weekend at the club he worked at. After a while, I told Stacy that I just didn't want to go to the club and that I wanted to stay home. But she said she was still gonna go. She started going to the club by herself, and after a few weeks, I got suspicious. She was really distant and cold. So I did the logical thing. I followed her to the club one night without her knowing. And when I got there, I found her straddling my cousin on a couch, full on making out. It gets really scary and violent from here. Part 2 is up. I see my girlfriend straddling my cousin on a couch, full on making out. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. Because we were inside of a club, there were so many bottles around me. I picked up a bottle and I threw it straight at her back. She turns around and looks at me and quickly gets up. My cousin stays sitting on the couch like the douche he is. And my girlfriend comes up to me, tries to play it off, and just starts laughing. But I was furious. Then she tries to kiss me. I push her and she falls onto the couch. She quickly gets up and tries to punch me in the face. Before I knew it, her and I were just beating each other up and 4 people were trying to separate us. My cousin elbowed some guy by mistake while he was trying to separate us, and the guy started punching on him. It was like a ball of 10 people kicking and punching each other. The DJ stopped the music and the club lights were turned on. That's when I knew I had to get out of there before the cops were called. I mean, I did start the fight after all. I saw Stacy's phone on the couch and I quickly grabbed it. Stacy grabbed me by the hair again, and that's when I see the cops show up. Part 3 is up. That's when I see the cops come in and I just started running. Stacy ran right after me. People start shouting at the cops to grab us. I was taken outside and a cop put me inside his car. They did the same thing to Stacy. That's when I started crying because I was really sad at the situation because I really love Stacy. And I never expected my cousin to betray me like that. I apologized to the club manager and the cops and they let me go. When I got home, my cousin was waiting for me at my door. That's when he told me the truth. Stacy and him had been hooking up since before I met her, but she just never stopped hooking up with him. He apologized and left. A few days later, I see Stacy posting on Instagram about her new boyfriend. And it's my cousin. But don't worry, I got revenge. Stacy showed up at my apartment to apologize one night. We ended up getting entangled. Now the question is, should I tell my cousin or should I just continue to see Stacy behind his back? What do you guys think?
Me and my daughter used to be best friends. We did everything together, and she truly was the light of my life. But things started to change on her teens. Moodiness, lashing out, lies, etc. I just thought it had to do with her age and that she would grow out of it. I really tried everything. Family therapy, long talks about how much I loved her. None of it worked. She would either roll her eyes back or spit more of her venom. My husband works really long hours and isn't much help, to be honest. My husband is white and I am black and my daughter is mixed, but she looks white and she really takes after her father. I really don't know what I did wrong, but her dislike for me began to become pure hatred. She would question all the time how someone like me could be her mother, when she was white and I was black. At some point, she demanded a DNA test, and I said sure, if she paid for it, and she was not pleased with the results. She is 17 now and began dating this white boy, and she is head over heels for him. She refused to let me meet him and told me that having a jobless N-word for a mother truly ashamed her. I am a stay-at-home mom, and I don't think I've ever experienced such pain. Long story short, I couldn't take her abuse anymore and decided to go back to my family in Cuba. My daughter couldn't be bothered to even say goodbye to me. A few days ago, I received a message from my daughter asking for forgiveness. She kept spewing on about how she can't fit in and is in a really dark place and lots of other excuses. It may sound cold, but I don't want to see her face. I don't care about her apologies. I thought I had made the right decision, but my husband thinks I should really hear her out and forgive her. My family has been harassing me to go back to Miami and make peace with her. My friends have been reaching out and have even called me a shitty mom for not forgiving her and how I must have done something for her to behave like she did. My anxiety is over the roof. I'm back on my pills now, and I'm starting to think, is it really all my fault? Am I the asshole for leaving my daughter? My boyfriend proposed to me on Christmas. Everything was perfect. He bought me this beautiful Tiffany & Co. diamond ring. The ring was a little big, so I decided to go in to get it resized. They took the ring into the bag and tried to pull up his information, but were unable to. After inspecting the ring, the manager comes out and shows me that it's not a Tiffany ring, saying there's no engraving on the inside. My first thought is he probably bought it used from someone and got duped. So when I got home, I asked him if he got it used and it's okay, but he flipped out on me, saying no, it's brand new from the Tiffany store. He got upset, saying I'm snooping around for the price of the ring. He told me I should have consulted him and he would have had it sized for me and that it feels like I'm going behind his back. So I did a little snooping. I went on his Amazon account and I saw that he purchased 2 rings. The first one was bought December 2nd, the one he gave me on Christmas, and then another one a size smaller last night. I'm not upset that he didn't buy me a Tiffany ring. I'm upset that he lied about it. I told him I didn't need the ring. He could have bought me a $200 14 karat gold band at Macy's and I would have been fine. Instead, he spent money on a box and 2 fake rings. He then confessed and said he got the box from his friend who proposed with a Tiffany ring. I don't know what to do. I work as an assistant for a really big fashion company. We had a defective wedding dress and my boss asked if I knew anyone we could give it to. My best friend recently got engaged, so it was perfect. When she posted on Instagram to thank me and my boss, my family caught wind of it, and that's when the influx of calls came. I do not have a good relationship with my family. My parents kicked me out when I was 16 after I came out to them, and my sister wasn't much better. They demanded to know why I gave the dress to my friend and not to my sister. I didn't even know she was engaged. They suggested I try to take it back from my friend as family should always come first. My sister even tried to call my boss to complain. I just got off the phone with my mom, and this is how the conversation went. She says my sister is very upset about the dress, and I told her she needs to get over it. My mom says I can make it up to them by giving her another dress. I posted one last night on my Instagram. It's a $12,000 dress and that's the one my sister wants. And I told her, you expect me to give you a $12,000 dress when you kicked me out when I was 16? My mom says, that was a long time ago and we're talking about your sister, not me. When I refused to give the dress, my mom says the least I can do is help her buy one. At this point I hang up and I've been avoiding them since then. My sister and I have always been mistaken as twins. I'm 19 and she's 16, but we have the same height, skin tone, and similar voice. She also has a habit of being a copycat, from the way I dress to hobbies, even piercings. I know it's cute if you look at it from the outside, but sometimes it gets annoying. Like, yeah, we are quite close too, but why does she always happen to pick up everything I pick up? One afternoon, I was tidying up some costumes in my college showroom and found a rather cute brown and pink wig. It looks like a mushroom. I put it on, think it looks rather funny, so I snapped a picture and posted it to my Instagram. I received a text from my sister asking if I really cut my hair. I didn't mention it was a wig. While I somewhat have a feeling that she might copy that too, I lied and replied yes. I came home that weekend and lo and behold, my sister emerged with the same silly brown and pink bob cut, except this one is on her permanent hair. She was surprised that I arrived with my hair still long, then realized that I lied to her. She was furious that she had to cut that silly hairstyle because she thought I had it. Our parents think that it's a really bad joke and wanted me to cut my hair too to make it up to her. So am I the asshole for telling my sister I cut my hair when I really didn't? My mother-in-law has hated me since day one because I grew up in a single-family household, and she told my husband that he deserved to be with someone who came from a 2-parent household. For 4 years, I bit my tongue trying to get her to like me. When we got engaged, she tried to dictate my whole wedding, not offering to pay for anything. When I decided I didn't want kids at the wedding, she flipped and told me I was selfish, that the wedding isn't for me, that I'm tearing her family apart, and that I'm ruining her life. Day of the wedding, she causes a scene because my mom danced with me and my husband, stealing her spotlight. My husband and her get into a fight, he storms away, and then she pushes me. I push her off, and then she lunges at me, going for my throat. She's literally trying to choke me at my wedding. All because I tried to grab my husband and say that this was not the time for a fight with his mom. She gets escorted out by security. Fast forward to now. She tries to communicate with my husband and my husband ignores her. Now he wants her back in his life. I don't know what to do. This lady put her hands on me at our wedding. I tried explaining to my husband how much she's hurt me and he says he understands, but that's his mom. I don't know if I should let my husband talk to her again because I don't want him to resent me, but she crossed so many boundaries and she doesn't see what she did wrong. And she refuses to apologize to me. When my daughter was born, she had dark skin and looked like her parents could be of African descent. My husband was furious and accused me of cheating and left right then and there. He told everyone on both sides of the family what happened and wanted a divorce. Then his friends and families all called me to say how upset they were and called me really nasty names. My mother was by my side the entire time as I kept professing my innocence. He refused to pick me up from the hospital, threw my stuff out on the lawn and changed the locks. When my sister called to get the baby stuff, he texted her a picture of a bare nursery room and said he got rid of everything. He even destroyed my art studio. Eventually, he agreed to do a paternity test and he was 100% the father. No one could believe this, so he did it again and he was the dad. One of his cousins did the ancestry thing and found out there was 30% of African in their family. This made Jim's paternal great-grandmother admit to having an affair around the same time Jim's grandfather was born, and because he could pass as hers, she just assumed her husband was the father. Since then, he's been reaching out and everyone has come to apologize. I told him I needed time and he asked to see the baby and I let him, but I'm too afraid to physically hand her to him. I've never cheated and have been 100% innocent all this time. Am I the asshole for not wanting to give him a second chance? My wedding was on September 21st, 2019. My cousin from my stepdad's side brought her boyfriend that she'd been seeing for about 6 months. And I've only seen him once before my wedding. We're all having a great time, and the next thing I know, my cousin's boyfriend asks the DJ for the mic and goes to the center of the dance floor saying he has a special announcement to make and calls my cousin over. So I rush over and say, nope, no one is getting engaged during my special day, especially during my reception. You can get engaged later tonight, but not right now. It's my day. Thank you for understanding. And I go to walk away. My aunt, which is my cousin's mom, starts yelling at me and calling me an entitled brat. It causes a huge fight and they all end up leaving. My stepdad's mom says I was wrong and told me to apologize and call them over and allow him to propose. Needless to say, it didn't happen. Flash forward to Christmas. It was terrible. My stepdad's entire side was there and they were rude and ignoring my husband and I the entire time. And of course, my newly engaged cousin announces her wedding date, which is September 21st, 2020. I'm beyond pissed and not planning to go. It's my 1-year wedding anniversary. My cousin says they chose to get married on their 1-year engagement anniversary. But I don't. My mother-in-law is super passive-aggressive, rude, and disorganized. Leading up to my wedding, she always criticized me about my weight. After our wedding, she was kind enough to offer to store some of our wedding stuff. A year later, my mother-in-law announces that she's going to do a big vow renewal celebration. Thought it was a bit ridiculous for a 65-year-old woman on her 3rd marriage, but hey, it's her money. As the ceremony starts, the bridesmaids come down, and then enters the bride, wearing my dress. At this point, I'm raging. My husband and I confront her after the ceremony where she denies and says I'm delusional for thinking it's my dress. I tell my husband we're leaving, but she starts crying and begging us to stay, swearing it's not the same gown. The next day, we go to her house to get the wedding stuff she stored. She gives us everything besides the dress, saying she lost it. After lots of screaming on my end and threats, she finally gets my dress. Lo and behold, it's the same dress she wore last night, except for the alteration of the corset and complete with her sweat and food stain from the night before. She starts sobbing and saying she thought it would look better on her because she's been working out so much and how she couldn't afford a new dress. I can now never wear my dress because she altered it to her size. I've been helping my friend plan her wedding for months. We bought her dress together, brainstormed over color schemes and decor for her big day. I was so excited. She had told me that she was going to take care of all the bridesmaids' dresses and all I had to do was give her my measurements. Then, at her bachelorette party, she mentions that she's already had a dress fitting with the other bridesmaids. I was a bit flabbergasted they had done this without me and asked if they had a dress in my size, and she cut me off and said, oh, I'll get it sorted. Next thing I know, she's not responding to my texts or messages. I kept trying to tell myself she's just busy with wedding plans, but I couldn't help but feel like something was up. Now it's about 2 weeks before the wedding and I still have no bridesmaid's dress to wear. I contacted the maid of honor and asked what was going on, but I didn't get a response from her either. I woke up to a text from the bride this morning that said, I'm sorry, I feel really bad for saying this, but I can't find a dress in your size. I even tried changing the whole dress style, but nothing I found would fit you. You're too big for all the sizes I could find. I don't think you can be a bridesmaid anymore. I feel completely shattered. I was really looking forward to this. My whole family knows I'm going to be a bridesmaid and are really excited for me, and now I have to tell them I can't do it because I'm too fat to fit in a dress. A friend of mine asked me if I wanted to come with her on some errands and see her new car. While we were out, my friend ended up hitting another car while turning left. We were both shaken up but mostly fine, but when I started calling the police, my friend started freaking out even more. She started begging me not to call the cops and to just go over to the other driver. I didn't feel comfortable not calling them, so I went ahead and did. That's when she started begging me to get in the driver's seat, saying I had to get in the driver's seat and I had to claim I was the one driving. Turns out she doesn't have a license. She needed/wanted a car but didn't feel like getting her license, so her mom bought the car for her. I didn't feel comfortable lying to the police, so I continued to refuse and just got out of the car and waited on the sidewalk for them to get there. I had to watch my friend get arrested for driving without a license, insurance, or registration for her car. Now her friends and her mom are saying I'm the asshole for not just switching places with her. She is now facing multiple fines, possible jail time, and being kicked out of our master's program because of all of this. I tried to explain that I didn't feel comfortable lying to the police, but she just kept calling me a privileged bitch and wishing horrible things would happen to me. So am I the asshole for not switching places with her?
That I grew up in a super sheltered home. Like, I was the friend with the strictest parents in the friend group. I could not go nowhere. So don't even come for me when I tell you that I didn't even know this was the first time. And I'm gonna be 20 in 3 months, and I'm making sure the car's not here before I tell this story. I wasn't here, so let's get into it. I was 14 and I just started high school. I've been in school for a few months, and I had a few mixed classes with seniors. I think it was like finals or something, and I'm talking to this one dude about how stressed I was. And he was like, do you want something for that? This guy was known for selling things, and I didn't know that. So I thought we were having a regular conversation. My dumbass, I really sat there like, what do you have in mind? I could use something for my stress, actually. As if this dude's gonna give me essential oils or some shit. He shows me he has brownies in his backpack. And I was like, a brownie would cheer me up. I paid this man $10. I didn't even think this was suspicious at all. I was like, I'm getting ripped off. I bought into it and that shit was so nasty. Then I had practice. My freshman year of high school, I was committed to 2 sports. I did lacrosse and martial arts. I had martial arts 3 times a week and lacrosse was every day. And this happened to be a day where I had both of them. And I still didn't know what the fuck was going on. That's how lost I was. I still didn't know what was happening. Now, I ate it in my last period. So 30 minutes into practice, I noticed that I can no longer sprint in straight lines. And I was trying my best. When I tell you I fell so many fucking times and nobody called me out on it. We finished warm-ups and they're like, we're gonna run drills. This is already a new sport to me. I was already confused without this. I didn't need this to be confused. I'm running drills paranoid as fuck. Like, looking everywhere constantly because I keep feeling like I'm gonna get hit. Then as I'm telling myself to calm down, I start to feel safe. The biggest mistake, because I was bodied so fucking hard the next minute, I was put on my ass and I just laid there and proceeded to try to take a nap. It was so embarrassing. Then I was sent to the athletic nurse where there's student volunteers. She's like, what's wrong with you? And I was like, I don't know. And the student is like, and I was like, am I? If you went to a charter school, please stitch this with the most stupid rules your charter school had. I went to a charter school in grades 4th through 8th, so we had to wear uniforms. There were lots of rules. You were a scholar. And in one of the years, I think it was my 8th grade year, they passed a rule. The rule was you could not travel through the school in groups of 5 or more. So if you had a friend group of 6 people, you had to drop somebody. And this was not told to us through teachers. This was broadcasted on the announcements. The teachers didn't even know about it. So we were sitting in class and we got this announcement in the morning after the Pledge of Allegiance. And the teacher was dying. He was like, well, guys, looks like you have to drop your most least attractive friend now. Like, buddy, we already got our 5. You can't walk with us. Now someone's gonna ask, what would happen if you walked in groups with more than 5 people? Detention, anytime, detention. Just like that, someone had to go. Someone had to walk alone. And for what? Like, what was the point of that rule? What was the reason for that rule? Like, that was kind of fucking mean. This is another one about dress code BS at my charter school. I kid you not, they changed some things in the dress code specifically because I wore them. And you can't say, oh, it's probably not because just you wore it. No, it's very specific to me. I was the only kid at this charter school that would specifically pull up in suspenders, bow ties, and necktie. And they would always try to dress code me for it. And I'm like, it's not in the handbook. Like, it doesn't say I can't wear a bow tie. They said it was me mocking the dress code by dressing up to mock the code that was already set. Baby, it's 2012. I'm a hipster who was very closeted. I'm wearing a bow tie for me, baby. No, I got so much shit for doing this my first year that when I came back for my second year, all of these things were instated in the dress code. They removed all of it. They said, no, you can't wear this, you can't wear this, you can't wear suspenders. Who was I hurting? Who? This is me just for reference. This little menace to society starting shit at the school. Another story about stupid rules at my charter school. I went to 2 charter schools. I've been doing my middle school and now I'm gonna do my elementary school. You know, at recess, how you have equipment, you'd run out and get all the equipment that you wanted to play with. Our charter school took away equipment little by little till we had nothing because kids kept getting hurt, but like, we're kids. First to go was dodgeball. We had dodgeball, but then a kid got hit in the stomach and they had to take the dodgeballs away. But I mean, we had football until they took football away because the kid got hit in the eye, you couldn't catch. So that's okay because we love kickball, except there's always that one kid that's got to get smacked in the face on third base, so they took away kickball. I know what you're thinking, soccer. We love soccer, but too many kids were getting shins, so they had to ban soccer for a while. That leaves us with basketball, right? Wrong, so wrong. No, they banned basketball for a while because too many kids were getting elbowed. But then you're like, Giselle, you probably had to tetherball, right? No, you smack it too hard, another kid would get smacked in the face, took away tetherball. That leaves us with jump rope, right? No, they took away the jump ropes because the girl was playing helicopter and got smacked in the calf too hard, cried. And from the very first day school started, we were not allowed to play on the playground because they were afraid kids were gonna get hurt on it. I read. Yeah, I can. So another rule is that the boots can only be ankle boots. You couldn't have any boots that were over your ankle. I came to school with boots that were 2 inches over my ankle and I got sent to the principal's office. The only thing was they pulled me out of testing for this. The security guard quietly followed me to my classroom, never told me that I needed to go to the office, waited till class started and I had begun a timed reading test for the state, then came into the classroom, pulled me out and made me go to the principal's office. And my teacher was like, she's taking a timed state test. And the security guard said, I don't care, she needs to come with me. They had really informed me that my boots were too big, so I folded them down because you can fold them down, but they had fur on them. And even though fur boots wasn't in the dress code, it violated the dress code. Because one of the rules in their dress code is subject to change at any time. And they decided now was the time. I go to the principal's office to wait for the principal. Turns out principal's in a meeting. They made me call my dad to bring me a change of shoes. My dad wakes up early to drive 3 kids to 3 different schools. He was pissed. He yelled at everybody. They never made me call him again. All for the principal to tell me it was okay. To anyone who gets a period, this video is for us. When I was in middle school, I really appreciated this teacher who would let the girls go to the bathroom whenever we wanted. And the guys would complain that they had to wait 20 minutes at least after lunch so that they could use the restroom. And the teacher would always remind them, you guys are boys and these are young ladies and they don't always have to just relieve themselves in the restroom. And I didn't even realize that that was just basic human decency for people who have periods until I got to high school. When I was a junior in high school, I was sitting in class and I felt like I was bleeding. And so I told my teacher that I had to use the restroom. And he told me I couldn't go because it was the first 15 minutes of class. And I told him, it's an emergency. I really have to use the restroom. And he said, you should have thought about that at lunch. And because I'm not going to sit here and bleed through my pants, I was like, I'm menstruating really loud in front of the whole class. He was shocked and so uncomfortable. He started doing that thing where he tries to laugh like, in all my 20 years of teaching, no one has ever told me that. And I just sat.
When I was in 6th grade, I went to go visit my little cousins at their house. Their house was right on the edge of these woods. And the woods were really thick, and our parents always told us not to go there. And one time I asked my mom why, and she said because when people do bad things, they sometimes go and hide in the woods. I was staying at my cousin's house for a week on this one trip. And whenever I was bored, I would go look out the window and watch the woods. Usually it was pretty boring, and I would just be staring at trees. But one day it was like 5 p.m. and the sun was setting, so it was getting dark, and I saw something moving in the woods. I told my uncle, and he said it was probably just an animal. And I told him no, it was tall and looked like a skinny lady. And he said I have a creative imagination and it was probably just a deer. But then a few minutes later, I heard my aunt and uncle whispering in the kitchen. My aunt was talking about a woman from a psychiatric hospital in their town who had escaped. Their house was like 15 minutes away from a maximum security psychiatric hospital for criminals with mental illness. And then they saw me listening to them in the doorway and they stopped talking completely. A few days later, in the middle of the night, I heard a noise downstairs. So I woke up in the middle of the night from this noise coming from downstairs. It sounded like something was scratching the back door. But when I got downstairs, the noise had stopped. But when I looked at the window facing the woods, there were footprints in the snow. But my aunt and uncle were really strict, and they had this rule that we weren't allowed to go in their room when they were sleeping. So I made sure all the doors were locked, and I decided I would tell them in the morning. The next morning we woke up and it was a really intense blizzard. Such heavy snowfall that we couldn't see the ground. So when I told my aunt and uncle about the footprints, they didn't believe me and told me it was probably a nightmare. The next day I had to leave, and I didn't go back and visit my cousins for a long time. But the next summer, my cousins really wanted me to come for their birthday party. Before visiting them, I looked up whether they had ever found the woman who had escaped from the hospital. And Google said that authorities were still looking for her and it was a high priority case. When I got to their house, I was playing with my cousins. They were about to turn 6 years old, and one of them goes, "Let's go check if she's there." And my cousin runs to the window facing the woods. So I asked my other cousin who she was talking about, and she goes, "Oh, don't worry, that's just her imaginary friend." But I knew that did not sound right. So I asked my cousin more about her imaginary friend, and she said she lives in the woods. And when I asked her if she ever spoke to her imaginary friend, she said no, just sometimes they wave to each other. And then when I asked if this imaginary friend was real, she shrugged and she said, maybe. So I really wasn't sure what to do because my cousin was always playing imaginary games and making up fake scenarios, and she had had imaginary friends in the past, so it wasn't unlike her. But I kept thinking about the missing insane asylum patient, and it just seemed eerie and coincidental. The next day was my cousin's birthday party. They invited all their friends and they had a pool party. When all the little girls were done swimming, I hung up all their bathing suits on a clothing line that was strung from their house to a tree on the perimeter of the woods. Later in the afternoon, afternoon, everyone wanted to go swimming again, but when I went to get their bathing suits, one was missing. So one of the girls had to swim in a t-shirt and shorts. But when we were all in the pool, I noticed in the corner of my eye that there was something blue in the woods. So I got out of the pool and I walked a little bit closer, but I was timid because I was super scared of the woods. And as I got closer, I realized it was the girl's bathing suit. At first I thought maybe the wind had blown it, but then I realized there was absolutely no wind that day. And even weirder, the way it was hung up on the tree looked like someone had put it there. It didn't look like it was blown there. It was hung there really neatly. The day after the pool party, my uncle was like, damn, you guys really went to town on the pickles. And we were all like, what? He's like, I bought that huge jar of pickles from Costco last week and they're all gone. Didn't you guys eat them at the birthday party? And I was like, we didn't have any pickles at the party. I'm really allergic to cucumbers. And then my little cousin was like, my imaginary friend loves pickles. They're her favorite food. And finally, for the first time, it seemed like my uncle was actually freaked out by this imaginary friend. So my aunt and my uncle ended up seriously asking my little cousin a lot about this imaginary friend of hers. And I actually ended up leaving a day early because it just started to get kind of serious and it was time for me to go. The next week I was at the park near my house and I got a text from my mom telling me to come straight home. When I got home, she was there and she was sitting down and she told me she had something serious to tell me, which was that they had found the missing patient from the hospital near my cousin's house. She had been living in the woods right by their house. And she was able to survive so long on her own in the woods because my little cousin would give her food from their house.